Hey, welcome everyone. I just wanted to give everyone a chance to get logged in. Hope you can hear me. My volume's okay. Give me a holler in the comments if you can't. I'll try to read them while still reading my written speech here. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am so honored that you're here. My name is Jen and I'm a self-published poet. I've been writing stories and poetry most of my life, but never had the courage to share my work until recently. My writing started as short stories about big families and talking animals, but became an outlet I used to process trauma and move through life. Music and English class had always been happy places for me that allowed me to look at events going on in my life and see them more clearly. During our time together, I will cover some experiences I have had growing up and how they shaped me as a writer. Music, meditation, and reading are tools I use to inspire my imagination and gain clarity. I plan to explain how I use these things, along with Medium providing a safe space to build my confidence as a writer. Toward the end of our time, I will talk about my creative process and how each poem comes together. When I thought about how I could use this opportunity, I decided to include three pieces I've written, ranging from 17 years old to more recent pieces I've shared on Medium. The first poem I'll read is called Trigger Warning Suicide. It was written senior year of high school. I want to warn you that this poem is very emotional and can be disturbing. It also perfectly encapsulates the way I was using writing during this period of my life. Trigger Warning Suicide. The cleanest feeling in the world when that edge meets her skin. Cleaning out her inner soul, it pierces like a pin. Hmm. Okay, welcome everyone. I hope that you're all settled in and everyone is here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so honored that you're here. My name is Jem and I'm a self-published poet. I have been writing stories and poetry most of my life, but never had the courage to share my work until recently. My writing started as short stories about big families and talking animals, but became an outlet I used to process trauma and move through life. Music and English class have always been happy places for me that allowed me to look at events going on in my life and see them more clearly. During our time together, I will cover some experiences I had growing up and how they shaped me as a writer. Music, meditation, and reading are tools I use to inspire my imagination and gain clarity. I plan to explain how I use these things along with Medium providing a safe space to build my confidence as a writer. Toward the end of our time, I will talk about my creative process and how each poem comes together. When I thought about how I could use this opportunity, I decided to include three pieces I've written, ranging from 17 years old to more recent pieces I have shared on Medium. The first poem I'll read is called Trigger Warning Suicide. It was written senior year of high school. I want to warn you that this poem is very emotional and can be disturbing. It also perfectly encapsulates the way I was using writing during this period of my life. Trigger Warning Suicide. The cleanest feeling in the world when that edge meets her skin. Cleaning out her inner soul, it pierces like a pin. Knowing someone could tell, she leaves her room in fear. Scrunchie squeezed tightly around her wrist, she cradles her injured arm near. She wonders how long it can last, living in constant pain. There's a gaping hole inside her, but it all goes on in vain. Someone asks about the scars, and lies are all that's told. He walks away knowing the truth. Someday her heart will fold. The blade lies safely in its place. This same old story's told. Buried deep within her skin, the real truth is told. You've got to stop, he yells at her. I will, she always lies. Over the phone, she seems distant, tears dripping from her eyes. She pushes hard and steadily drags. The razor crosses her skin. Deep incisions are left behind, so this time she will win. Her mother's on the telephone. Quiet sobbing fills the air. No pulse and she can't move. Her life just wasn't fair. Growing up for me was different from other kids. At a young age, I struggled with what I now know as anxiety. I would always be cold, constant stomach aches, and headaches. When my family moved in the third grade, it took some time to make friends. As a result, my hair started falling out. The doctor said it was stress, so my mom cut my hair mushroom style, and the teasing started. Over time, my hair grew out and life settled down, but I had grown cold and mean. I developed a get you before you get me mentality. Chaos and quiet would be a reoccurring theme in my life for many years. The summer I turned 12, my heart led me astray for the first time I can recall. I believed I had fallen in love, but he and his friends saw me coming a mile away. They started with small things I thought were flirting, like taking my shoes and making me chase them or stealing my drink. It developed into 2 years of physical and sexual abuse by multiple boys in his friends group, and they all played lookout for each other. Over this period of time, my grades tanked, my friends changed, I was always in trouble, and I started using coping mechanisms a lot. Choosing friends was based on their level of toughness and the protection they could provide. It started with people who were seen as gangsters at school, but escalated quickly into people actually affiliated with gangs and hanging out in places I had no business being. While I was lucky enough to meet some genuinely wonderful people, I learned a lot of lessons during this time, and I lost many of those people to violence, drugs, and suicide. I had kept all of the abuse hidden from my parents, so they had no idea why I was spiraling the way I was. I didn't go to therapy until my 30s, so I found other ways to numb the pain. These were mostly destructive habits like self-harm and reckless behavior. It was also when writing poetry to try and express myself first started. I had always written, but when trauma started piling up, I wrote so I wouldn't be consumed by the darkness. That darkness would later be diagnosed as complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety panic disorder, and depression. Writing made me feel heard and bold in a world where being small and quiet were my safest options. It stayed as my secret hobby for a long time and focused mostly on my healing and struggles to cope. Simultaneously, I was living my life looking like a normal person on the outside, but my mental health was bad and I had no self-confidence. After high school, I tried college unsuccessfully and decided working full-time was the path I wanted to take. At that point, the most important thing for me was to be there for my family and get some space to figure out who I really was. I continued to work hard on healing and put in order the chaos that was my thoughts and emotions. With immense help from my family, my husband, and my children, I reached a place where I felt passionate again. A place where I felt comfortable to use my voice and speak my truth to others. When I first decided sharing my poetry was a good idea, I would have terrible anxiety and always second guess myself. In the past, this was when I would give up and decide to keep my writing private. But using these tools combined with Medium, I was able to continue to and express myself in ways I had only ever imagined. Pretty Words is a piece I wrote in March, and it really highlights how writing helps me feel less out of control. Pretty words. I like pretty words. Raw, enlightened, earth-shaking words. Maybe because on the outside, I feel mismatched, and in my brain, I feel infinite, graceful power. But I don't let the outside in, and the magic can't get out. When my pen spills ink onto the page, there is a direct connection to that magic. It flows easily without judgment, no risk analysis that comes with each social interaction. Moving with fluidity, no heavy chains of safety weighing on my actions. Fear of rejection disintegrates in the face of such majestic brokenness. Naked and in pieces, as the words fill the page, I am held together, dressed in the finest pretty words. I didn't always look at music, meditation, or reading as tools, but looking back, I have always used them to get through tough spots, and over time, the way I use them to help me write has also evolved. Music has been an important part of my life since childhood. I really love lyrics and figuring out the message of a song. When an artist is able to talk about something that I feel or have gone through too, that connection that makes you feel not alone has been a lifeline for me thousands of times. Music has always given me confidence and in many ways guided me when I didn't trust the people around me. Rap is my favorite genre, and Tupac Shakur, who is also a published poet, was a major inspiration for me to start expressing my struggles through words. The Rose That Grew from Concrete is a book that very heavily influenced the way I would structure my writing because of the way it would add suspense and humanity to each poem. I also admired the way he would express his emotions and convictions with pride. It made me feel like he didn't hide and there was no reason for me to either. In my poems, I want the reader to see and feel what I am writing. I want them to get that connection I feel with songs. Listening to music adds many layers to my writing. It helps me clear my head and focus. It also reminds me that I'm not alone, despite feeling very different from everyone around me all the time. Reading serves much the same role, but has become more useful recently in my life. Now that I've been able to calm my nervous system and organize my thoughts, reading other poets inspires me. School wasn't a great experience overall, but I always love reading and escaping into stories. I discovered slam poetry and really identified with the freestyle, aggressive delivery and the deeper, more complex themes. The internet, oddly enough, has also helped me expand my horizons, with finding and connecting other artists and being exposed to many different styles. Medium is a very important part of this journey because it allows me a safe space to be creative. Having other writers at your fingertips who will provide constructive comments and support has been invaluable. It also provides endless reading material from thousands of viewpoints, which really inspires my imagination and passion for conveying emotions through words. Without meditation, I would not be able to be quiet enough in my head to really enjoy reading or anything for that matter. I learned how to quiet my body and slow my brain down through breathing, being present, and learning Reiki. I had to reteach myself how to react to certain stimuli and how to talk about any kind of feelings. This tool was the hardest to really use effectively because, to be honest, at first I was very skeptical. It took a long time to meditate for any period of time. Through a combo of breath work, meditation, and self-reflection and practicing Reiki, I was able to really tap into my creativity and begin to express myself more broadly and comfortably. In the next piece, I would like to share Oasis. I stepped outside of my typical poem in terms of the way it's structured and in the way the poem has a positive, happier theme. It also has been my most read poem to date. Oasis. A broken heart leading a broken girl, unable to grow. A broken girl following a broken heart, searching for her value in every soul along the path. A brain that always comes in second to a nervous system running at top speed. Toxins from secrets leaked into the body, poisoning her thoughts, further exaggerating her impulsive nature, deepening the hunger to be seen, while pushing her deeper under the surface. She needed to find every last soul, bring them in from the cold, and use her own warmth to thaw them. She used her shine to light their path, and for a long time, she walked alone. Until one day she stopped walking, stopped looking, stopped performing. She laid down right where she stood and let the earth envelop her, cried tears until a spring formed. And for a time, that's how she existed. A small hill next to a puddle along the path. Eventually, rain swelled the puddle, creating a beautiful, bountiful lake, nurturing the living creatures around it, filling the surroundings with beauty and shade. What she knew as the end turned out to be the beginning of her oasis. I'm hopeful that you each saw a vivid picture in your imagination of what your own oasis would look like. For me, as a writer, that is one of my most important goals, for my words to spark the reader's imagination. My ideas for poems come mostly from experiences I've had or feelings I've experienced. I'll sit with an idea for a couple of days. Sometimes I'll write it down, just the concept or event to come back to when inspiration strikes. Many times I find inspiration in a song or particular genre because it matches my vibe so well. I may have heard the song millions of times, but that day, with that idea in my brain, my imagination takes off. It can come in one big rush, and all of a sudden I have a picture in my head of where I want to take the reader, or it can develop over time as I write a line or two a day, rereading over and over until I get a sense of direction as to where I want the poem to go. The biggest boost I have given myself in this whole journey is to write it down. I finally caved and got a notebook just dedicated to my writing. Not grocery lists, birthday party plans, and poetry, just poetry. I do find something helpful in using pen and paper, especially in the brainstorming stage. But if I'm stuck on something or struggling to close a piece, I will just type it out, and a lot of times the line will come. Much of my writing journey has been to express huge feelings and really challenging traumas. And those are still things that are present in my life. Now, I want to make an effort to be more dynamic and find joy through words. Balance would really be the right word. I don't want to bury the past anymore, but I won't be defined by it. I write to gain perspective and unload my conscious mind. I have a deep belief that putting something down on paper, really working through it, is the best way for me to move through things. Calling myself a writer has been one of my first goals I have set and achieved for myself. Thank you for your time today, and please feel encouraged to ask any questions you might have. Okay, questions and answers should be open. I'll do my best to answer them as they come in. Thank you, AV. It took a long time, but I felt really called to share just what I could, where I was, when I was. Um, I'm not there yet, but I'm definitely not where I was before. So every day, I push a little harder. I explore a little more. I feel a little more. It's just a day at a time kind of a thing. And sometimes there's great days and sometimes there's stretches of great days, and those are great. And sometimes not so much. But, I have a community like this. I have my writing and my family to be able to express myself. So that's been a big deal, a big help too. Hi, Lindsay. I just saw your question here. I write it down and I reread it a lot. I think that's why it took so long for me to get here to share it, because I did have a little bit of like embarrassment or shame about it. But I use a quote to kind of help me clarify things in my head, cut out all the like extra buzz that comes in, from outside. Um, it's basically, if your experiences are your experiences, if people wanted you to write more warmly about them, then they should have behaved differently. Like, I tell the truth. I don't call anyone out by name. But because I make everything emotional, I'm sure there's a better word for that, but I tend to take everything in an emotional kind of a way. I make everything more broad, because I don't, for a long time, it just appealed to me because it was just about my experiences. But now I'm trying to kind of make things more broad, make things more general almost, so that other people can kind of say, oh, I've had that experience, even if they haven't, it hasn't been the exact, I felt like that. I started to focus more on the feelings. I'm getting a little bit familiar with this Q&A thing, so if I look like I'm clicking buttons and stuff, trying to make sure I get at everyone's questions. Oh, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. For Lindsay's question, it was, is it hard to share such personal thoughts? Like, afterwards, do you wonder if you have exposed yourself too much? That was the last question that I answered when I was talking about, rereading and really owning my experience. And Valverde Galvan, I hope I got your name right, just said something really nice. I wanted to thank you for sharing your story. I'm also a childhood survivor with CPTSD. Your poetry and stories really resonated, which I appreciate. Okay, so what you have to do is keep refreshing it. I got it. Oops. All right, let's see. Okay, the next question that I just got was, do you feel that you will continue to grow in your writing? I do. I'm optimistic. That's the point, is for me to be able to um, put it out and move on. And once it's out, then I can make room for stuff, make room for the positive and the different, and the things that I haven't really ventured into before. Because as I mentioned, I kept it so secret, and I kept it a lot about just like my personal struggles and my healings, which was really cathartic for me. But now I want to kind of start to branch out, which is also why Medium is as helpful as it is, because I can read different perspectives, get different ideas, be inspired by people who may or may not have had similar experiences to me, but can still connect. We can still have a connection through words. And I'm not great at verbally expressing myself like in person. So I feel like the more I get comfortable with my writing, the more that's going to come out in my personality and my ability to communicate verbally and not just in writing. A few more minutes here left for the Q&A. You're welcome. I was hoping I would get it right. I had to read it for a hot second. She said I got her name right and thanked me for that. There it is. Lindsay said, why suppressed poet? You seem good at expressing yourself. I have come a long way. I think really the suppression was more about me suppressing myself, making myself feel like different and less than because of the experience that I'd had. And I looked around me and all these people were able to do all these things. And I couldn't. I struggled in a lot of things. I struggled in executive dysfunction. I couldn't finish school. I just didn't have the attention span because of the way that post-traumatic stress disorder puts your nervous system in overdrive. And I didn't know how to stop that for a long, long time. So I functioned kind of behind the scenes. It was all very, like in my notebook. Occasionally I would share it, but I never thought that it would resonate with anyone else. And it's really rewarding that it has, because I've always felt it, but I didn't know that there was people out there I would connect with. So it's really been rewarding. Thank you for that question. Okay, Mary asked, were you encouraged by teachers to continue writing and expressing yourself? Unfortunately, not so much. That first poem I wrote about suicide, that was actually turned in for an assignment in high school. And I just got a grade on it. I'm pretty sure I got a C because I turned it in late. And we just went on. Like, teachers didn't I had some issues with turning in things, listening, things like that. And they didn't know how to take that. They didn't know how to handle that at times. So they looked at it as disrespectful. But I just focused differently than others and the other typical kids. And they didn't, I never really connected with any of my English teachers. I did have great teachers over the years, some of them, but it just wasn't as encouraging as I had hoped it had been. But Medium has kind of been that for me. It's kind of stepped in and been like that mentor, that kind guiding hand that kind of tells you, hey, this might be a little bit off, but this is really great. And it's constructive and helpful and things like that. Okay, 2 more minutes for the Q&A. Okay, I'm gonna refresh one more time. It seems like Ivana, if you want to start writing poetry, just start writing, just write it down. You don't have to put it out. Some of the pieces I've written have sat in my notebook for months. You don't have to put it out. You don't have to show anybody or read it to anybody. You can just write it down and come back to it the next day and see how you feel about it. See if you get inspired to add more or if it's just there. And don't give in to cringy. If you read it and you think, oh, this is cringy, that's just you. You have to give yourself a break. We're our own hardest critics. So never judge what you're writing. Write it down, read it. If you like it, put it on a platform like Medium. Start building a community. Send it to people that you love. Read it to people that you love. But just do it. Just do it. Start writing it and just see where it takes you. See how it makes you feel and go from there. I hope that's helpful. See it moving. How do I encourage others to express themselves? I express myself. I'm open about my struggles, about my shortcomings, about everything, about as much as I'm comfortable with. That's the thing. I used to be totally open book. That's not a good way to go. But I express myself. I'm open. I embrace my goofy weirdness, as I've come to call it. And that's my basic plan, is just to show through example. Okay, guys, the session is over. I really appreciate you listening and asking all the questions. And please feel encouraged to find me on Medium. And have a wonderful day. Enjoy Medium Day.